The Angels had a yard sale. Is it trade deadline 2.0? First pitch is next, guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 46 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pite, and with me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sism. Buddy, how was your week?
It's been a good week. It's been a busy week, but hey, all is well. Episode 46 is here.
Dude, that's nuts.
Football season is here, which is kind of exciting too as a sports fan, but hey, this is going to be a fun episode. Let's do it.
Yeah, the dog days of summer are over. We're going to talk about it. We had this weird waiver period, which kind of threw a wrench into what otherwise was going to be kind of a, I don't know. It's kind of like a twist in things for some of these teams. So I'm pretty excited to dive in. Let's get going with where do we stand. We're going to pull up the standings here. We're going to have the right date team. We have the AL East. Baltimore hanging on here, 83-51, a game and a half up on Tampa Bay, 82-53. Then you have Toronto, 74-61, 9.5 games back. The Red Sox falling off on a 5-game losing streak. They might win tonight, but, playing Kansas City. So you really got to win those games. And then the Yankees in last place at 66-69. In the AL Central, we'll go quick. 70-65 is the first place Minnesota Twins. 5 games back. The Cleveland Guardians, 65-70. Then you have Detroit, the White Sox, and Kansas City. Nothing's changed there. In the AL West, man, this just keeps getting better and better. Seattle and Houston tied for first place. And then a game back of them, you have the Texas Rangers, 75-59. And then the Angels and Oakland. Let's take a quick look, Will, before I kick it to you to the wild card. We have 3 teams. Tampa Bay, they're 6.5 up. They're pretty much seated in a wild card spot, you'd have to think. And then Houston, 1 game up on Texas. So those are your 3 that's in right now. Game and a half back of Texas is Toronto, and then you have Boston. So it looks like 4 teams for 3 spots. What are your thoughts on the American League, bud?
You know, I've got a few. It's really interesting kind of how this is shaping up. Starting in the East, I think a lot of people thought that the Rays might kind of just fall by the wayside once McClanahan and Wander, had the injury, obviously, with McClanahan, and then Wander's got his issues. But I'll tell you what, man, the Rays are playing really good baseball right now. And I'm telling you, I know that I'm a fan, and I promise I'm not trying to be a homer, but I know this team and I know this franchise. Don't think for a second that they don't believe that they're going to pull this division out. And so I think this is going to go down the wire with Baltimore. And so that's going to be fun to see. In the Central, does anybody else get the vibes that Minnesota might still screw this up? Like I'm not ready to just say Minnesota's got this for whatever reason. Just because as soon as you think that they're about to just run away and hide, they just go on like some sort of cold spell. And can we just say for a second, is Carlos Correa maybe the most overrated baseball player in the league now? He's hitting like 220 something.
It's so bad, man. And you got
a guy who was asking for $300 something million and he's hitting 220.
Yep. And I don't know. They're locked into this deal for another 5 years.
Ugh.
One thing I keep reading is he's a big leader in the clubhouse. He obviously is playing good defense, but the stick is just not there. And when you're making that kind of money, I'm with you, dude.
I'm calling him out. You remember a couple of years ago when he would point to his wrist and say, "It's time. It's Carlos Correa time."
Yeah,
hey, it's Carlos Correa time. You better start producing, boy.
Yeah, for sure. No, I heard something about wait until he gets till October, and I'm like, he's hitting like 212. I think when I read that, I'm like, man, I don't know that it's just gonna flip it on. I mean, I know he has a great playoff career, but I don't know.
That lineup desperately needs it.
Yep. I mean, if he picks it up, it's adding an all-star. But has he done that yet? No. And I don't know. It's been a pretty tough second year, I guess, into his tenure in Minnesota. What are your thoughts on the West? It's time, dude.
So on the West, how crazy is it going to be? Obviously, this is all hypothetical now, but how crazy is it going to be if a team like Houston or Texas, who has been there all year long,
Yeah.
I mean, all it takes is for Toronto to go on to start playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as Seattle's playing, if they keep it up, it feels like one of those teams can miss out, as crazy as that sounds. Because neither one of them just look really good right now. Verlander got roughed up just the other night, and I don't know, man. And Texas isn't playing well, so
3-7 in their last 10.
You want to talk about some pressure these last few weeks? Those teams are going to start feeling it because, I mean, like I said, they've been there all year long, and man, somehow, some way, if they miss out, it's going to be a major disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, Texas, you had the injury bug
with
Eovaldi, and then of course DeGrom going out. I mean, that happened so long ago. We almost forget he's on the team. But here's what we're going to see: we got a couple veteran managers in Dusty Baker and Bruce Bochy. You know, some people have this dialogue that maybe managers don't do that much in Major League Baseball. We're going to see if they can command the room and kind of right the ship, because Texas, I mean, you're right, dude. They are a bad series away from missing out on the party. Like we always say, even in fantasy, man, just get to the dance floor in the playoffs and anything can happen. So, but you said it last week. We'll say it again before we hit the National League. I don't want to see Toronto in a 5-game set.
No.
You will?
No, that's a scary matchup just because, dude, the pitching, let's call a spade a spade. Their pitching has carried them. That lineup, in my mind, has been a big disappointment, especially with the names, that everybody expects to produce. But, man, that pitching staff has been rock solid. And so, yes, that would be a very scary matchup for anybody in the AL if they got in.
Yep. Let's get Bo Bichette healthy, and then, Vladdy's got to go, dude.
He does.
Dalton Varsho hadn't done much. I mean, you can look up and down that lineup. Springer, yep. I don't know, dude. Let's talk about a team that is rolling right now, and it's just, you could have said it all year. The Atlanta Braves, they're big brother in the LA Dodgers right now. This 4-game set that listen, people who don't even watch baseball that I work with or even talk to, they were like, "Are you ready for this series?" Like, they know this is a big deal. This Atlanta LA series, and Atlanta's come in and handled business the first couple of nights. We still got 2 to go. We got 1 tonight, and then tomorrow Sunday we'll see 1 then. But Atlanta, they're a win away from 90 wins. Will 89-45. Philly 74-60. They are 15 games back. Miami, are they done? 69-67, 21 games back. And then you got the Mets and Washington battling it out for last place. In the Central, Milwaukee 75-59. They're 3.5 games up on the Cubs, who may have saved their season, taking 2 of 3 from the Brewers earlier this week. The Reds, they won't go away. 6.5 back at 70-67. And then Pittsburgh and St. Louis, 58-77. Man, what a disappointing year. In the West, the Dodgers doing dodgy things, 83-51, 13.5 games up on Arizona, who is 70-65. That's also the same record as the Giants. So, boy, we got a couple of teams battling out for the wild card. San Diego, done, and then Colorado. Pretty mountains, if you ever go up there. The sky is really clear, so stop and look up at the stars at night, okay, guys? You're not going to want to miss it. Okay, let's talk wild card teams. We actually got 4 because, like I just said, we got a tie at the 3 spot. Let's hit them real quick. The Phillies, 74-60, 4.5 games up. Then the Cubs in that number 2 spot. That's pretty awesome, 72-63. They're 2 games up on both Arizona and San Francisco. A game back of those 2 are the Reds, and then a half game back of the Reds is Miami. Then you get to San Diego. So I feel like you got Miami, Cincy, San Fran, Arizona battling out for that 3rd spot. Takeaways, Will?
Yeah, golly, it's just tough right now. I mean, it just feels like everybody in the National League outside of the Dodgers and the Braves just are like playing 500 baseball almost in a sense. It's almost like one team will go on a little mini streak and then they'll lose several in a row, or one team will win a series and then the next 2 series they lose the series, and it's like nobody can get away from each other.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like at this point, I feel like it's Milwaukee's Central Division to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it that way. I'm not ready to rule the Cubs out yet, but it just feels like the Brewers kind of almost in a way control their destiny. I feel like if the Brewers play good baseball the last 3 weeks or so of the season, that they should win the Central.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it feels like in the wild card, I'm ready to put in ink. I'm ready to put the Phillies in as a wild card team.
I like it.
Right? And then it feels like one team out of the Central is going to make it, and one team out of the West is going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like it's going to come down to the Cubs and the Reds out of the Central. I would slightly favor the Cubs just because I think they've just been more consistent over the last month or two. Mm-hmm. And then I would say in the West, it's almost like a dead heat between the Giants and the D-backs.
Yeah.
I think the D-backs are a better team.
Yeah.
But I'm not ready to rule out the Giants. I've said all along, the Giants give me a little bit of Tampa Bay vibes out of the National League, and they kind of defy almost the odds in a sense when you look at that roster and you're like, how are these guys winning?
Yeah.
So teams like that are scary in that sense, but I don't know. I would like to see Chicago, the Cubs, and I would like to see Arizona get in.
Yeah, dude. Well, I think Arizona would be a better watch. Right? One note before we move on, dude. You got the Chicago Cubs, right? 3.5 games back of that first place spot in the Central. And I was like, let's do a little schedule watch for the Brewers. So they are in Philly right now. Then they go Pittsburgh, New York Yankees, Miami. So those are some subpar teams for sure. Washington, St. Louis, Miami, St. Louis, and then to finish off a 3-game set in Milwaukee against the Cubs. So I want to see that last 3 games matter. But, dude, if that's not a runway, if that's not a runway for the Brewers to win this division.
Yeah.
And
it's theirs to lose.
For sure. And, I don't want to, hate on the Brewers because they've been playing great baseball, but when we look at this division, I see, or this league rather, I see Atlanta, I see LA, and then I like the Phillies over the Brewers.
Agree.
Honestly, in the playoffs, just because the offense just isn't there in my mind for Milwaukee. So I don't know, dude.
The Phillies have all the ingredients, man. I mean,
yeah,
the Phillies. I've been on the Phillies for a while now, since they've gotten everybody back. But obviously they're not catching the Braves because they got it off to such a, the Braves have just been so good for all season long. But the Phillies have all the ingredients. If they were to get matched up, with either Atlanta or L.A., let's call it, in a 7-game series. I'm not going to say it's quite 50-50, but it's pretty close because the Phillies have the pitching. The Phillies have the lineup. The Phillies have a pretty good bullpen now.
Experience.
And so they can compete with anybody.
There's no doubt, dude. There is no doubt. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. I was talking to my wife. I was like, man, we are close. We're like 4 weeks away from baseball getting really interesting. Dude, October, best time of year. You got football in full gear. You got baseball, PSL, pumpkin spice lattes back. I bet you're a huge fan of that, Will.
Yeah.
All right, family. Hey, let's move on. You hear the sizzle. You know what that means. It's time to talk about All-Stars, All-Studs, the Heat Check Player of the Week. Will, who you got, bud?
Yep. So my Heat Check Player of the Week, we've talked already a lot about him. The big series in L.A. I'm going to Atlanta Braves country. Marcell Ozuna. For anybody who's not been paying attention, he has been on an absolute just crazy tear these past few weeks. I think I saw where he's hit safely in 11 straight games, and I think I saw where he's hit like 7 or 8 home runs in that span. Yeah. So shout out to Marcell Ozuna. He is having just a lineup loaded full of just studs. He's having one of the most under the radar, really good years in a while that I can remember. He's hit, I think it's 32 or 33 home runs, He
Yes,
bats
sir.
fifth, right behind Matt Olson in that lineup now. And man, what a I don't know, what a couple of weeks he's had. So I just want to give a shout out to Marcell Ozuna, arguably the best team in baseball, and maybe one of the most underrated cogs in that lineup that's really made it go.
Yeah, well, dude, it's a great point. I saw some statistic on Twitter talking about how, like, week over week, he's had a better last 14 days than Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
Which is pretty neat. 2021 and 2022, this guy's batting average was 213 and 226. He's upped it to 272 this year. OPS of 887.
That'll work.
That'll get the job done. There's no doubt about it, man. And it's just like Atlanta, way to stick with this guy, I guess. I mean, he's paying dividends now for sure. So we'll see, dude. This team looks, I don't know, looks like a lock to play some deep, meaningful baseball in October. That's a great pick, dude. I'm glad you mentioned him because his batting average was like 600 at some point over like 10 days. I mean, it was nuts. At some point, it's like, you got to stop throwing at this guy. You know what I mean? Just give him first base. My guy I want to shout out, this is kind of weird coming from me. I don't know. Aaron Judge, my Heat Check Player of the Week. He's the quickest at 250 home runs, and I just think that's insane. I think he did in 811 games. He's got 30 home runs this year. He's played in 80 games. So, I mean, there's 162 games in a season, Will. So you just double 30. That's 60. He had 62 home runs last year. This guy was on pace to have a magical season before the right field wall in L.A. got involved. But, you know, his little piggy went to the market, and it came wee all the way back home. Now he's back on the field mashing baseballs for the last place Yankees. I mean, it is as good as it can get for me if I have him on a fantasy team because, you know, it's like, where's the sweet spot where he's doing well but the Yankees are doing bad? I think we found it, and, you know, so he's earned my Heat Check Player of the Week. I mean, what else can you say about this guy?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, here's the thing, man. I mean, the Yankees just have to start putting some pieces around him. I mean, I would say good on the Yankees for calling up those young prospects. We finally get a chance to see Dominguez, who they've been hyping up for a little while. And, you know, he had a home run off of Verlander the other night, so that was, you know, interesting. But no, you're right. I mean, Aaron Judge is, when he's healthy, he's as good as there is in the game right now. And, you know, I hate it. As a baseball fan, I hated that he missed all that time middle of the season, but man, even when he's going well, this Yankees team just still can't string together wins, it feels like. So the Yankees, it's going to be a really interesting offseason. It's going to be a really kind of fun topic for us to maybe dive into in the offseason to see what the Yankees do, because here's the thing. The Yankees cannot just stand pat.
No,
like,
sir.
They have got to start you know, because, I mean, I'll put it this way. It feels like right now the Yankees are miles away from Baltimore and Tampa, and even I'll put Toronto in there. It just feels like the Yankees, there's a significant gap there. Yeah. And if you're the New York Yankees, you cannot let that happen. So it's going to be a fun offseason to see what they do.
Yeah, it's Cole's prime. And this isn't a Talking Yankees show, so we'll move on. But, yeah, it's been an interesting year for sure. Moving on to what's on the grill with Will. Man, oh, man, this happened early on this week, but we have to touch on it because Ronald Acuna Jr. got touched on a Major League Baseball field from some fans that ran out into – dude, I've never seen anything like it, and I got to get your 2 cents on it. This guy, I'm sure people have seen it. If you're listening to this, you're a baseball fan enough to watch this video. I mean, this guy runs on the field. It looks like he wants to take maybe a selfie with Ronald Acuna Jr., wraps his arm around him before security is even in camera shot, and then another 2 people come out. By then, security's there. They're trying to get this guy off of him. They are not succeeding. I have never seen anything like it. I was expecting something from the Rockies, you know, either apologizing or trying to explain what happened. I mean, this just can't happen. You cannot have people on the field touching big league players, we don't know what this guy had. I mean, what if it wasn't a cell phone? Dude, just a really tough look for security in Coors. Dude, what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I mean, this, I'm all about fans getting a good experience and whatnot, but man, you cannot. I mean, you cannot have fans on the field, and much less not even on the field, but being able to get far enough into the field to where you're literally standing there with your arm on a player and security not even in, camera view. So, yeah, I'm 100% with you. That's unacceptable. Mm-hmm. I hate to even say it, but you just think about, like, what if this person had bad intentions? You know what I mean? So,
Correct.
So, yeah, I'll leave it there. But, yeah, just not at all a good look there. So, thank goodness everything turned out all right. But that's, man, that just can't happen.
Yeah. Dude, rough week for security. Just thinking back to last week, I just thought about this. Did we talk about it? I don't know if we did. The White Sox fan who snuck a gun into the stadium. Did you know about this? Now, apparently, I don't know if this is true. I've read it multiple sources, and this is what they're thinking. There were shots heard, but the gun was accidentally discharged. She had it in her belly fat somehow, I guess, for lack of a better term. And that's how she got it past security.
Wow.
I don't know, dude. Here's where I always land on this stuff. You go to an airport, you go to a ball game, and security's checking your bag or stuff. I don't give those people a hard time. They're there for one job, and it is to keep you safe.
Yep.
And so I always tell them thank you, and this unfortunately is what happens when that job isn't done well enough. And
yeah, just a scary scene, though. I mean, and you just
no doubt, dude.
You just can't. It's unfortunate, but you just can't trust people, that much anymore. So yeah, glad everything's turned out okay, though.
Yep. Happier news on the Ronald Acuna front. Later that week on Thursday, Acuna got married, tied the knot. Handsome guy, and then hit the 30th home run of the season, a grand slam in L.A. To become the first player in Major League Baseball history to have 30 home runs and 60 stolen bases. So what a jam-packed day. I mean, you wonder, I don't know how many people getting married on a Thursday, Will. But
No.
He saved some money on the wedding venue, right?
Yeah.
You want to get married on Thursday? Okay, get
well,
over here.
The Braves have got him such a cheap contract. He had to save some money and get married on Thursday instead over the weekend. So.
What a slam dunk by Will.
But
awesome.
yeah, congratulations to Acuna.
Just on all fronts, dude. You're just crushing life.
Right? And I mean, let's not just scoot past 30-60. What an incredible season. I mean,
it's nuts.
Who knows if he's going to end up with the MVP? I know Mookie and Freddie are making a push for it, but man, what an incredible season. I mean, and the season's still got a month left. So,
yeah.
This guy could challenge 40-70. And,
that'd be nuts.
Like I've said all along, let's really appreciate what we're seeing with a guy like Acuna because, this is historic stuff. I don't think it's far-fetched at all to say that this guy's going to probably be a Hall of Famer one day. And, just sit back and appreciate it, whether you're a Braves fan or not. The guy is incredible.
Yep, dude, he's lights out. He is lights out.
And by the way, if you've got him on your fantasy team, enjoy the ride.
No kidding. And if you don't have him, if you want him, you have to trade like all your draft picks. Like I'll trade my next 10 ones.
Yeah.
He's electric. He's awesome. Okay, the Angels. Something a little bit less incredible. We were talking about this a little bit before we hit the record button, Will. They placed everybody on waivers. I've never seen anything like this, and I don't think any of us have because this is kind of a new thing for the season. So nearly a quarter of their roster. So you got Lucas Giolito, Matt Moore, Ronaldo Lopez, Dominic Leone, Hunter Renfroe, and Randall Grichuk. Now, 4 of those 6 are people that they traded for at the deadline, gave up top prospects for. Now, obviously, their farm system wasn't like tops, so maybe their top guy isn't as good as
Right.
a better team's top player. But still, I mean, this is prospect capital they're giving up for these guys for essentially about 30 days of work on their team. The reason why they do this is to try and recoup some of the money, which would have been around $7 million. If they can get under the $233 million luxury tax, when Shohei walks out the door, they get a second-round compensation pick instead of a fourth. And they were semi-successful. Other players that were put on waivers by other teams, I got them here for you, Will. Yankees, Harrison Bader. New York Mets put Carlos Carrasco. Chicago White Sox put Mike Clevenger. And then Detroit Tigers put their reliever, Jose Cirino. I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's definitely a book that we read in high school. Cyrano. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So let's talk about what happened, because this all went down a couple days ago. Hunter Renfroe to the Reds, Harrison Bader to the Reds. So you got a couple of, solid outfielders. They're good defensively, and Renfroe's got some pop. You got Ronaldo Lopez, Matt Moore, and Lucas Giolito to the Guardians. So let me ask you, Will, are the Guards going for it? What do you think about that?
I don't know if I would say going for it, but I think that they got a good deal. I mean, if you want to phrase it that way. I mean, let's remember, like what you said earlier, the Angels gave up some of their better prospects for these guys at the deadline. And the Guardians essentially were able to pick these guys up for
cash.
Essentially, paying a month or so of their salaries.
Yep.
And literally not having to give up any prospects. So,
yep.
Again, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're going for it, but I think that obviously the Guardians think that it helps their team, or they wouldn't have claimed them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My biggest takeaway though is I just think that this personifies perfectly the Angels.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing?
Dude.
I mean, okay, I understand that they'll always say we were going for it. We have Shohei, we have Trout, we wanted to go for it, but in reality, this just looks so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they've given up some of their better prospects. Literally, have gotten rid of the players that they gave up these prospects for.
Correct.
They're probably going to lose Shohei in the offseason. It's just just an absolute mess they've just made a total mess of this. And you know what? I at this point, I don't feel bad for them.
Dude, we talked about it a lot, and the risk involved with not letting Shohei go with where your team was. And obviously didn't pan out for the Angels. But here's what I want to say. Not sticking up for the Angels, but they were a game and a half in front of the Seattle Mariners in the wild card hunt before the trade deadline. So they made all these deals thinking they were going to play better, and then I think they went 8-19 in their following 27 games. I mean, it just did not work. So I guess you can say this is like the best move they could have made. Going forward, but dude, it's just such a sour look for the organization and the front office. And I don't know how you keep your job after something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fumble of all fumbles. And you can say they're going for it, and I guess that's a positive spin, but like your team was put in this position, like everybody knew when Shohei was going to hit free agency.
Yeah.
You make these moves on people who don't have only half a season of control. I don't know. It's just it's a bummer.
But let's also and I know we need to move on, but are you really going for it when you get, with all due respect, Lucas Giolito, Mike Moustakas, it's not like we're talking about them acquiring
Soto.
Justin Verlander or Juan Soto. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, are we really?
Yeah.
I feel like we're saying that, they're going all in, but they really got, I'm just going to say it, they got some fairly marginal guys.
Yeah.
I mean, So
it's like they were
like
playing this.
Yeah, like I get it, but at the same time, it's like, all right, how sustainable is it when Shohei is literally carrying us, and we've got to try to fight off the Mariners, the Astros, the Blue Jays? I mean, I don't know. That's just kind of my standpoint on it. It just seemed destined to fail.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it.
Small window of success, and we just missed it. Yeah, it's like the thing is too is like it's like playing the slot. It's like you got to get 5 in a row to win. It's like they were wrong on the second one. It's like we were never close. It's September, and we're worse off than we were. It's kind of a I don't know.
I think the
biggest
biggest question for me moving forward, especially if Shohei walks, which I fully expect him to do now, I think the biggest question for me for that franchise is what do you do with Mike Trout at this point?
Yeah, get him healthy. Yeah, get him healthy and see what he wants to do. I don't know. Dude's gonna be a lot of fun to talk about. Dominic Leone to the Mariners, and then this happened today. The Orioles claim Jorge Lopez from Miami, so that's another trade deadline kind of swap that I guess didn't work out. So Jorge Lopez back to the Orioles. We were talking about it. No waiver deadline, but there is a deadline September 1st. The player has to be on your 40-man or can't compete in the playoffs. So Jorge Lopez will not be pitching October playoff innings for the Orioles, but maybe he can come back and find something. He had a ton of success the first half of last year.
Yeah.
Went to Minnesota at the deadline. I don't know if it didn't hit the right way with him. I read stuff about him struggling with anxiety and depression. So we wish the best for that young guy. And, hopefully he gets back on track, dude, because he's really good. He's got some nasty stuff. Clevenger, Jose Cisnero, I don't know how to say his
Cisnero?
name. See, that's fine, yeah. Cyrano, de Bergerac. Let's see. Carlos Carrasco. Here's the one I want to know, Will, not a math pod. Randall Grichuk cleared waivers, did not get picked up by another team. So did the Angels make the cut, Or did any of this even? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see next year. Because I don't know. We'll see.
It's just really interesting. I would just say to close the book on that, it honestly kind of caught me off guard because I think I was watching MLB Network when they had the breaking news that the Angels released all these guys, and I was like, huh.
Yeah.
I didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
But
like
once
a yard sale.
Yeah, once they explained that it was basically a cost-cutting move and all that kind of stuff, I was like, okay, I get it. But again, it just looks really bad for the Angels. So, interesting. Here's what I'll say to close the book on it, though. I'm kind of glad, though, that none of the real, what I would say, contenders were able to get these guys because it almost, I don't know, to me it just felt a little shady.
Yeah.
It's like you're able to get these guys that the Angels are just kind of shipping off. So anyways, I don't know. I don't know. I'm glad that it wasn't like a major deal for, let's just say that the Mariners were able to acquire one of these and somebody thought it was going to be a big impact. I'm just glad that it doesn't seem like it's going to make a seismic shift one way or the other.
It's a weird format. I misunderstood because honestly, when I saw the waiver thing, I was like, oh, it'll be like fantasy,
Right.
You just make a waiver claim, and then once your claim gets accepted, you move to the back of the line. Or some leagues are set up to where, like, depending on how your record is, these guys could have claimed all 7 players. They just have to make roster space.
Yep.
And pay the salary. And I just thought that was weird. So that's why the Reds got a couple. Those are solid outfielders. Hunter Renfroe's had some really good seasons under his belt. 30, 40 home run seasons. So, and obviously Harrison Bader, one of the best with the leather in the business. So, dude, it's going to be crazy. Speaking of crazy, I am crazy excited to get into this next segment, guys. And if you made it this far, okay, we're 35 minutes in. This is important stuff because we made it to Will's tips and tricks for fantasy playoff success. I didn't even realize this, man. We were just grooving along in all these leagues. This is my first year being in more than one league, and man, I didn't realize. Holy moly, the playoffs are like 10 days away. Okay, so this is our guy right here. Everybody, listen up. We're going to talk about some stuff leading into the playoffs. Point number 1: head-to-head leagues. Be sure to analyze main competition. What does that mean, Will? Explain it to me like I'm 5, brother.
So yeah, I mean, and what we're gonna kind of cover here, a lot of this pertains mainly to head-to-head leagues. If you're in a roto league, the same kind of concept applies. You should be, if you're in a roto league right now, you should be figuring out, where can I acquire like points in these last few weeks? Where can I catch up with somebody who's ahead of me in a certain category? So how can I make that happen? But shifting gears back to head-to-head leagues, so, leading into the playoffs, as of right now, if you're a week or so away from the playoffs, these are a few things that, in my mind, you should be thinking about. So as Cody mentioned, the first thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out, all right, number one, if you don't know already, how many teams make the playoffs, okay? So if you're in a 10-team league or you're in a 12-team league, do 4 teams make the playoffs? Do 6 teams make the playoffs? Figure that out if you don't know the answer to that already. Mm-hmm. And then let's just say hypothetically 4 teams make the playoffs. Well, you probably, if you're a week out, you can probably pick out at least 2 teams, if not 3 or 4 teams that are probably going to make it. All right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm looking at teams that I'm most likely to get matched up with in the playoffs, and I'm figuring out, all right, who's on the roster. I'll pull up their matchups in the last couple of weeks, and, what have their stats looked like these last few weeks? Are they really strong in, let's say, home runs, RBIs, runs scored? Or is their pitching really dominant? Do they have really good strikeout guys? Do they have really low whip, really good ERAs? Figure out what they're really good at, and then also figure out what you're really good at, right? And kind of compare the two. And so the biggest thing is figuring out, all right, what are these teams good at? But then what also are these teams vulnerable at, right?
Right.
So if I feel like I'm going to get matched up with somebody here in the next week or two, and if I feel that I have a really strong advantage, in hitting or pitching, then I'm going to try to do what I can to close the gap and maybe a deficiency, right?
Sure.
So whether that's picking up a guy, whether that's playing certain guys in that specific matchup, you're just trying to get a feel for, how is this matchup potentially going to play out, and how can I maybe close the gap to flip a couple of categories based on their strengths? So that's what I mean by looking at the competition.
Dude, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful point to get us started off here, because, it's just like anything. It's hard to manage anything if you don't evaluate it, right? It can be anything in life. Finances, relationships, anything. So if you're diving in, I love that. That's something, last year being my first year, I remember you telling me that. And it really changed the way I looked at not even just playoffs, just week-to-week matchups. Because, no team is perfect. You're going to have teams that have different strengths, different weaknesses. Obviously, what makes fantasy so awesome is sometimes those strengths and weaknesses will be flipped out of nowhere. People are going to have outstanding games or outstanding performances, and that is that's pretty exciting. And it all really boils down to how much time you can kind of put in, and it doesn't take too much time. Obviously, you go out there, live a normal life, social life, whatnot, but just take a little bit to understand, where the matchup lies, who's hot, who's not, all that fun stuff. This next point, Will, I really like, dude, because I have realized and learned about myself in fantasy, I am slow to make transactions, whether it be waiver wire or trades. And so every time I hear this, I feel like you're speaking to me. Tell me about your second point.
Yeah, I would say, and so this is another point specifically as you're leading into the playoffs like we are right now. So I would say as far as this point goes, so if you're somebody who feels pretty much like you're going to make the playoffs, a week or so out, if you're in really good standing as far as the standings go, I would say if you're not already doing this, to not feel stuck with the bottom of your roster, right? So, I think it's really important, especially going into a head-to-head matchup in the playoffs. It's really important in the playoffs to find, all you need is like two guys on your, and I'm talking mainly about hitting, but this also applies for pitching, but all you really need in the playoffs is for two guys to get really hot during that week.
Yeah.
And as long as the rest of your team does, they don't have to do anything special, but as long as they kind of do what they normally do if you have a good team,
yep,
more often than not, you're going to probably win the vast majority of the categories. If you've got two super hot guys batting-wise, plus the rest of your team's doing what they normally do, I would say chances are really, really good that you're going to carry those categories.
Yep.
So, leading into the playoffs, if there's a guy on waivers right now that is just tearing the cover off the ball, pick him up. Right, with the hopes that he continues this hot streak, over the next few weeks. Because here's what you don't want to do: you don't want to fall in love with somebody who's kind of marginal, who probably should be dropped on your roster.
Yeah.
And the worst case scenario is your competitor goes and picks him up, and uses him against you. Yeah. Next week or the week after, and it's kind of the difference maker, right? So again, don't feel married to the bottom of your lineup. Anybody at the bottom of your roster is droppable.
Yep.
And go out and find you a hot bat or two or a hot arm or two to go along with the rest of your team that should be pretty solid.
This really ties into how you evaluate your team, and like you said, there comes a point, and it's around the playoffs, where you have to understand, like, even a player that's been really solid all year but has cooled off, I mean, at some point it is not what you've done, but what are you going to do? Because especially in head-to-head, it is a 1 week contest, Who's going to be the hottest of the week? If this guy's batting 105, don't play him. And I know we're going to have kind of a point on this later, but you have got to be able to cut ties, and it's a little bit freeing once you do it. And obviously, there's always that risk that he's going to kind of bounce back and play super well. But at the end of the day, I guess you got to make a choice you can live with. But I love that point, dude, because it's about winning on the margins in the playoffs, and I think that's a good way to do it. Last point leading into the playoffs. Tell me about it, Will.
Yeah, so my last point for prior to the playoffs is one thing that I always try to do is, and sometimes it's actionable, sometimes it's not, but the week prior to the playoffs starting is I try to figure out, first of all, on my roster, which pitchers do I have that should be lined up for 2 starts. Okay? Because if you're in a head-to-head matchup, and let's just play a hypothetical here. Let's say I'm in a head-to-head matchup for the first week of the playoffs next week, and I have Spencer Strider, and I know that he's lined up for 2 starts in the next week. Dude, I'm feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah.
And what this allows me to do, if that is the case, I can go what I call short on that week. I don't have to play everybody if I don't want to, because I feel pretty confident that if I've got Strider going out there for 2 starts, he's going to carry strikeouts more than likely. He's probably going to have a really great ERA, really good whip. So I'm not going to necessarily, if I don't feel the need to, start every single guy during that week to carry pitching categories. So I say all that to say that week prior, you can usually get a pretty good idea, figure out which pitchers are lined up for 2 starts, and you can adjust kind of your mindset accordingly. And then same thing for hitters. Figure out what teams, and in this case, which hitters maybe have a day off on either Monday or Thursday. That's usually when days off happen in the season. And, if you need to be proactive and add a guy who doesn't have a day off, on those days for the following week, don't be afraid to do that. Don't wait until the night before or whatever to do it if you know that that's already something you've prepared for. So that would be my last point. Just figure out kind of what that next week is going to potentially look like and get kind of a game plan together.
Dude, the word proactive, man, I really like it. Because it almost speaks to all three of those points you just made about leading into the playoffs. Like, if you can have that step ahead, you're just setting yourself up for success. One thing on the two-start pitchers, a couple caveats. If you do a roster lock thing, some leagues you have to set your roster on Monday. Be looking at both matchups, then obviously weigh that, and then innings pitch limits. Obviously what Will was saying, you can go short, but don't come up short on your innings pitch limits. Okay, so that's a pretty slick maneuver, but just know what that number is. And if you're in the playoffs, chances are you know what that line is, and maybe you danced with it a time or two, but you probably have it under control. I don't think we're talking to people, Will, who haven't checked their fantasy lineup. So, good luck to everybody. We hope leading into the playoffs. Let's talk about once you're in. Oh, man, you're on the dance floor. The music's playing. It's a lot of fun. 3 points. What's number one, Will?
This is probably my biggest thing, and this is it sounds so simple, but I don't think a lot of people fully grasp this, and this is why I think it's really important. Mm-hmm. So remember, if you're in a category league, and let's say you have 10 categories, just to make math really simple, in the playoffs, it don't matter if you win 10-0 or if you win 5-4. Remember, you've only got to win the majority of your categories and you win in advance, right? So do whatever you need to do. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Figure out potentially what that matchup's going to be a week beforehand. Figure out where you stack up compared to the other team. What's your strengths, what's their weaknesses, vice versa. And remember, if you're in a 10-category league, you only got to win 6, right?
Yeah.
Let that other person win 4.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if they kill you in those 4 categories, but as long as you win 6, they can't beat you. So always remember that. And just keep that in mind throughout the week. You're not trying to win all 10 categories. You're just trying to win 6.
Yep.
Right? So keep it simple. Stick to the categories that you have an advantage in. And, the ones that are marginal that could go either way, that's where you kind of really set your lineup around those ones that are kind of in flux to where you can, hopefully take advantage of that and, again, win 6 out of the 10 and you advance.
Yeah, go on to bigger and better things. I love it, man. That has been something you preached to me regular season, even because we play in a category league, and so that's always something that stuck to me. Like, don't be scared to lose a category or two, And a lot of times that's kind of how it'll work out. If you're winning wins as a pitcher, maybe you'll lose losses, and if you have more strikeouts, you might have more walks. Don't worry about that. Just win the majority. So I love that one slid in here. Our next point's more of a discussion point, and you came up with this question, and I loved it. So I want to know your thoughts on setting your lineup for a matchup that you like versus are we setting our lineups with just our pure most talented players? Which direction do you go, man?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and this is one that, playing fantasy baseball for a long time now, this is something that I still kind of have that inner debate in my head all the time on, like what you said. Do I go with a matchup that I really, really like, or do I just purely go with my most talented lineup and stick to my guns, so to speak?
Yeah.
For me, ultimately, I go with my gut. And I feel like, as long as I go with my instinct, I can live with the end result.
Yeah.
So if I have a really strong feeling, for example, about a certain matchup, and I just have a feeling about it, I'll go with it. right? But I will say, more often than not, especially in the playoffs, I would say the vast majority of the time I stick with my most potent lineup.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, here's my thing. I don't want to get beat when I'm playing. I'm just going to give a real life example here.
Here we go.
So I've got Luis Robert as my center fielder in our home league. All right. Let's say I picked up, I don't know, name a center fielder that's on Tommy Pham.
Tommy Pham.
Okay.
Josh
let's
Lowe.
Let's say I pick up Tommy Pham. At the end of the day, Luis Robert might go 0 for 5 several days in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, I can live with having Luis Robert in my lineup every day, knowing the season that he's had, knowing how talented of a player he is.
Correct.
No disrespect to Tommy Pham. But if I were to flip the script, if I just think that Tommy Pham has all these incredible matchups that are favorable, and I put him in 2 or 3 days over Luis Robert, and Luis Robert's sitting on a bench and he hits about 3 or 4 home runs over the span of a few days, I'm going to be really upset at myself.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I got one for you.
So that's where, like, in that hypothetical example right there, I can live with going down in a matchup if I stick to my most talented players, if that makes sense.
Follow-up question, and I think this will be good for the listeners at home. Say Tommy Pham's batted .600 over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Does that change your mind at all? How does that alter your decision? Yeah.
It does. It would be something like, for me, because we play in a league, so just to give our listeners some insight. So we play in a league that has 21 total categories, that has 11 hitting, 10 pitching. Okay, so we have a ton of categories. For me, how I like to do things is I try to keep my utility spot, meaning that I can play any position in my utility spot. I try to keep that in my mind very flexible. So in this particular example, let's say I do have Tommy Pham and he's just red hot. I would probably more often than not play him in my utility spot, because that's a spot that I try to put somebody that has a really favorable matchup, or if somebody's just scorching hot, that's usually where I try to play those type of guys. And for the rest of my, positions, as far as my normal lineup goes in the playoffs, that's where I try to go with my most talented lineup, and then stick my red hot guy or favorable matchup in my utility spot.
Right. Nope, that's a great answer, dude. Anybody keeping score at home, Will is in first place by a mile in that league, so you're going to want to listen to him. And I think at some point he won like 4 or 5 years in a row. So dude is absolutely lighting it up. Last point, man. Keep a watchful eye on daily lineups and matchups. You got a couple points under it, and I think we've all done it a time or two. But elaborate on the rest of this point.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like, once you're in the playoffs and in the middle of that week. So I would say, again, everything in the playoffs is magnified, because these are the 4 or so best teams in the league. Usually more times than not, fine margins define a win or a loss.
Yeah.
So I say keep an eye on your matchups, because you don't want to miss out if someone's getting a day off.
Yep.
Right? Because that could be the difference. Like 2 or 3 hits could be the difference in win or loss in the playoffs, because it's a one and done. So that's what I mean by that. So make sure that if a guy's getting a day off, make sure you get somebody to replace him in the lineup. Also, throughout that week, probably my biggest advice when you're in the playoffs, outside of remembering that you only got to win the majority of categories, is don't wait until Saturday and Sunday to try and like make up ground in specific categories, because
Right.
usually it might not be too late, but if you would have been proactive earlier in the week, you would have
Mhm.
had a much better chance of flipping those categories, as opposed to waiting that last day or two in the week of the matchup. So keep an eye on the matchup as much as you can throughout the week, and obviously adjust lineups accordingly. So that would be probably the biggest thing there.
Dude, I love it, man. What an insightful series of points and topics, guys. Those have been Will's tips and tricks for fantasy success. And like I said, the resume, I mean, if it's audio only, you can't see anything, but just trust me, it's immaculate. He knows what he's talking about, and it's just, I hope everybody has fun, because the fantasy playoffs, man, it is just a good time. You want to talk about being locked into every game for 7 days? It is an absolute good time. On the spot, any matchups or any like weekend coming down to the edge of it, pay for the whole seat, only use the edge of it kind of moments in your playoff past?
Oh man, there's been a lot. One thing that comes to mind, I don't know if this quite answers your question fully, but I do remember it's probably been about 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes to the point of finding guys that are red hot. I'll never forget this. I picked up Adalberto Mondesi.
Yeah.
For the Royals. He played for the Royals. I know he's been traded a couple of times or been
Red
picked up
Sox
by...
shortstop. Future of the Red Sox, baby.
So I picked him up. Like I said, this was 2 or 3 years ago. And I kid you not, he probably hit 500 that week of the playoffs. He stole about 5 or 6 bases. He literally carried my whole team in stolen bases.
Yeah.
Because I usually, Cody, you know this, stolen bases is usually one of the categories. Remember, we've got 21 categories in our league. Typically, stolen bases is one category for whatever reason that I kind of just let go. Like, I usually don't, for whatever reason, draft a team full of speedsters. But that year I picked up Mondesi before the playoffs, and he literally allowed me to win steals on top of several other categories. So that's one that comes to mind. But man, I've had a bunch of – I mean, I've been fortunate to have a bunch of good teams over the years. And I don't know. It just always feels like in the playoffs that you have at least 1 week to where it's like comes down to that last day.
Yeah.
And several categories can be flipped one way or the other. And so you're just kind of – there's nothing you can do once you set your lineup, and you just kind of, let it play out as it will. But it's fun, that's for sure. If this is your first year in it and you're in the playoffs, just enjoy it. I mean, it's you're rewarded for having a really good team. And, just if this is your first go-around – learn as much as you can this first year when you're in it, because until you're in it, it's one of those things you can listen to me talk about it all you want, but until you're in it, and Cody, you can speak to this last year, once you're in it, that's when you learn the most.
This is true. Yep, that's very true, man. I mean, like we've said over and over again, it's like every move, every matchup decision, it's just magnified, and you feel like, I mean, you can overmanage, you can undermanage.
Yep.
And I think I said it earlier in the episode, but it just turns into like, I mean, it's not this serious because it's just for fun. Some people play like some serious money leagues.
Oh yeah.
Where I would lose sleep, but it's essentially just making a decision that you're okay with, Yep. And I've been torn. I think we've all been torn. If you've ever played this on any level, you understand what it's like to just be like, I do not know who I like better, and that's why it's fun. But it stings a little bit more too when it doesn't work out your way. So,
and I will say, just kind of my last point on this, and this is just as real life of an example as I can give. And so, like in our home league, I've got the best record, right, in the regular season. And honestly, I feel like if you're in a league out there, and I will always defend this point, If you're in a league out there and you're going to be the number 1 seed going in the playoffs, I truly believe that whoever wins the regular season with the best record, I believe that they have the best team because they've proven over the span of the entire season, that they've had the most consistent best team over the long haul. However, this is the point I'm trying to make. If I go into the playoffs as the 1 seed, it doesn't mean a thing once you get in. Like, it really doesn't. I may technically have the best team, but all it takes is for me to run into a guy that has 3 red hot bats or has Spencer Strider going 2 times 1 week, and guess what? I'm done. Dude. Right? So I say all that to say, if you're a 1 seed, great. That means you've got a really good team. But if you're playing the 4 seed, they've got a really good shot because it's a 1 week deal. And also that goes to say, if you're the 4 seed and you're like, crap, I'm getting matched up against the juggernaut. Hey, anything can happen in a 7-day span. Anything can happen. And so that's what I'll leave you with. Anything can happen in the playoffs.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the draw to the Roto League. That's why people like rotisserie. But anyway, guys, in life, it's kind of one of those moments where is it better to lose by a lot and know you're done and still be competing, or is it better to is it going to be close? Who's going to pull it out? We don't know. Well, let's find out, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You hear the fireworks. It's getting a little chilly outside, but we're going to play those fireworks, man. Until the off season, Will is up 11-3. These are one of those moments where I think we know it's done. Okay, there's not 8 more weeks in the baseball season. Unless you want to do playoffs, Will. You want to do playoffs, Will? I'm just kidding.
I think we should stick with regular season.
Crown them. Go ahead and crown them. We had the battle of the totally awesome man-crushed catchers. Will had Adley Rutschman. And, man, defensively, he was a gem. But on the stick side of things, 4 for 17, a 235 average, 1 RBI, a 551 OPS. So that's that. We're going to go to my pick, Sean Murphy. Now, what did I say? Well, I said he's not going to play a lot of games, okay? Adley played 5 games.
Yep.
Sean Murphy played 3 games.
2 of those was at Coors Field, let's say.
Yeah, I was very appreciative of that. He had 4 for 12. 12 at-bats at the same number of hits. 3 of the hits were doubles. Adley didn't have anything spectacular, just 4 singles. Still stole Will's heart, though. Sean Murphy, 2 RBIs, a 968 OPS.
Way to go, Sean.
Yes. And, ladies and gentlemen, we have our first 2-game. That's a streak, baby. 2-game win streak for your guy, Cody. Oh, I'm so excited. Lots of people I'd like to thank. Man, let's move on to week 22.
I still love Adley Rutschman, though. I don't even care. He's my guy.
Dude, forever man crush Adley. I love it. And it seems like you might be are you a closet Orioles fan, Will? Because I like your week 22 pick. Tell me about him.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. The Orioles have kind of won me over a little bit. I'm still always going to be a Tampa fan, but if Baltimore ends up making a run, I'm not going to be too disappointed in it. So, because I just think they're fun. I think it's a really fun team.
Yep.
So I'm going to stick with that theme this week. Cody actually picked first on our document this week, and I kind of like the direction he was heading. And so I kind of just want to keep the theme that we've kind of got going here. So, and I think this will make sense when Cody reveals his pick. But I'm going to start off, and I'm going to go with Gunnar Henderson.
Ooh.
A guy who got off to a very, very slow, icy start this season. I think he probably terrified some people who drafted him fantasy-wise, and he may have terrified the Orioles. But, man, he's really looked really good these past couple of months. Looks like he is legit. I think he's going to be a really good player for a long time. But anyways, the Orioles in the bigger picture, they got to hold off Tampa. And so they're going to need Gunnar to have a good couple of weeks to end the season. Yeah. And so I'm going to roll with him as my pick this week, just to have a solid week and for the Orioles' sake, try to win some games.
Yeah, this is a guy, man, in the last month, he's been absolutely ripping up. 290 batting average, OPS 834, 5 homers, 20 RBIs. He is he's the real deal, and he is the reason why the Baltimore Orioles window is looking so bright.
Yeah.
I went with another young gun, dude, and I was watching this highlight. Ronnie Mauricio for the Mets. I'll be honest, I drafted him in a dynasty league thinking he was like a year or two away. But this has been a lot of fun. I actually considered going with Jason Dominguez for the Yankees.
Yeah.
But I was like, I picked Judge. I can't have 2 Yankees as my, I just can't do it. But there are some really fun young players up, and this is one of them. He made his debut on Friday. He was 22 years old, went 2 for 3, and he set a StatCast record. 117 mile per hour double laced over the right fielder's head, and it was the hardest hit first career hit by a rookie since StatCast was introduced. So
wow.
I thought that was kind of fun. I mean,
yeah.
I kind of feel like that's a lot of modifiers for that stat. Let's be honest, Will, but still pretty cool. And dude's lightning fast, good glove. And, if there's hope in NYC, it's going to be a combination of kids like this guy and Francisco Alvarez, coupled with, Cohen's checkbook, which we've talked about a lot on the show. Any thoughts on Ronnie?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think he's going to be a really exciting player to watch for the Mets the last month of the season. Fantasy-wise, keep an eye on him, how he looks these last few weeks of the Mets season this year. Obviously, they're not going to make the playoffs, but keep an eye out on how he performs because, if he looks awesome these last few weeks, he'll probably be like a mid-round pick next year based on, potential, right?
Yep.
And I think he's going to get second base eligibility because I think he's going to play second base for him. And so, he'll be a really interesting guy with some upside. So, I like that pick. I think he's, like what you said, the Mets just need to end the season on a positive note.
Yep.
And whether that's them winning some, series to end the season, hopefully that's the case for their sake. But more importantly, if Francisco Alvarez still continues to look really good, and then this guy, Ronnie Mauricio, continues to look really good and solidifies a spot maybe for next year, then Mets fans, it's like, all right, this year kind of stunk. It didn't meet our expectations. But, hey, going into next year and beyond, we've got some guys that we can really feel good about moving forward. So I'm with you.
Yeah, dude. It's I think you said it perfectly, guys. Dude, one last note. Shouldn't even brought it up, but it just popped in my head. Last night, did you see Scherzer left the game early with forearm?
No, I did not.
Dude, and it's just like you got.
He was pitching really well. I saw.
He was. I mean, he's getting the job done, and so you hope it's nothing. But he's a former
forearm.
Forearm, right? Forearm. Haven't seen anything today, but man, does it not make you nervous, especially with. The last couple of years, it felt like he's ran out of gas. So
yeah, and man, the Rangers are just reeling right now, man.
I mean to tell you, that'll be bringing the heat after the episode special, I guess, guys. But hey, for right now, this is 46. We really we just want to say thank you, guys. We've been kind of rolling along through the season. Like I said at the beginning, the dog days are over, and we are heading towards. On playoffs, and I said it last episode. We started talking. Episode 1 was in the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
and we're on 46. There's 52 weeks in a year, which means we are close to have been doing this for a year. And so, if you've clicked on even one of these episodes, it's just such a blessing to us, and we really appreciate you guys. Reach out to us on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. At BTH_Cody, at Will Sism. Will is the fantasy guru, so go ahead and shoot the questions his way. And hey, check us out on YouTube. If you want to see our faces while we're talking, I don't know if some people like that. Maybe not. Well, I don't know, dude. People might click on and then click right off, like, "Ooh, these guys are audio only kind of guys."
Right?
Hey,
we don't take offense.
No way, Jose. We appreciate you guys. But until next time, thanks for listening to episode 46 of Bringing the Heat.